Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ybot, and welcome to wing number 2 of Black Rock Foundry on Raid Finder difficulty. This particular video is going to focus on tanking said wing on Raid Finder difficulty, and we're going to focus on the 3 bosses, Hans and Franz, the Flamebender, and the big scary dude at the end whose name I forget. Let's take a look. Let's see what his name is. Kormog. Oh yes. Kormog and Flamebender Ka'graz? Flamebender Ka'graz, ladies and gentlemen. That is what she will be called from here on out. Alright, so let's first deal with Hans and Franz. Alright, so these dudes right here, I'm going to be using the guide here on icyveins.com for them, and this covers the normal, heroic, and mythic difficulties. So I'm going to go over the normal mode mechanics here, and this is stuff you should watch out for on Raid Finder, which is one tier below, as you guys are probably well aware. So, first thing, 3 things that tanks need to look out for, rather. First off, when there's just one of them on the field, the tank who's actually tanking either Hans or Franz is going to get a debuff called Shattered Vertebrae. This is your tank switch mechanic. So you need to keep that in mind. You need to do a tank switch when it gets too high. Basically when your tank starts taking a bit of damage, your other tank rather, starts taking a bit of damage. So as always, as with all Raid Finder things, first thing you should do, select the other tank, put them on focus so you can see the debuffs and see if their health is dipping very quickly so you can taunt the boss off of them. So that's just your basic tools for competent raid tanking. And apart from that, just use your normal rotations and use your common sense with regards to tanking these guys. Try to face them away from the raid. In this particular fight, try to tank them as close as you can to one another. As a courtesy to your DPS, it's going to make the fight go a lot easier because they do have a shared health pool. And you can cleave, your DPS rather, can use cleave damage. And also, myself as a paladin, I've got a crap ton of AoE damage. And, yeah, when there's both of them on the field, it means more damage gets done, which means they get killed quicker, which is always good. Also, please keep in mind these DDR mechanics that you're seeing there. The conveyor belts, they move back and forth. There's these little things in between there. The steel beams in between the conveyor belts that you can kind of stand on, although you need to get onto another conveyor belt to get away from the molten hot metal, which is going to cause a fire AoE effect, or fire dot effect, fire damage over time effect. And also you want to stay away from the end of the conveyor belts, because when they're active, the end of the conveyor belt is on fire. So if you get to the edge there, it's going to be flaming, it's going to be burning, it's not going to be pretty. And when the stampers come up, you're going to see this like white hot insignia, white hot stamp of where it's going to come down, move around, and just as long as you don't get hit by the stamper, and that's good, the rest of the raid is pretty much on their own to pay attention in that particular fight, which is good. I like it. It's nice that you don't, it's not entirely on the tank, that it's pretty much, it's mostly on the DPS. It's always the DPS's fault, but here especially, it's the DPS's fault if things go wrong here. So all you DPS players out there, we love you, but sometimes you're a little stupid. So, those who are watching this video, you're probably ahead of the game. The ones who don't bother doing any research, you're the ones that we judge. Anyways, let's take a look at some of the other mechanics here. We're in the middle of the DDR phase with the stampers, stamping all over the place. If you get hit by one like I did just there, it's not huge. It does about 90k damage per stamper hit. So it's going to be rough on your healers if nobody bothers to avoid it, but it's not the end of the world. So, there are a couple of things here that you need to keep in mind as well. When both of them are on the field, there's an ability called Crippling Suplex, which I get hit with at one point, or rather, I am used to beat on the other tank. Hans picks me up, throws me to Franz, and then uses me like a club to beat the other tank over the head at some point. Here we go. There it is right there. So I'm picked up, and they go whoop, over, down, and smack. And I believe, yep, smack again. And Buddy used a defensive cooldown there. The other tank used a defensive cooldown. We're all good. He took about 1/4 damage, though, even with the cooldown, so that's something to keep in mind. Also, there's an ability called Body Slam, which actually causes that Shattered Vertebrae debuff that I mentioned earlier. So when Body Slam is being cast, get away from the melee group, get away from the entire raid for that matter, and the other tank, and you just take it on your own, because that is AoE if you do not, and the entire melee portion of the raid is going to have Shattered Vertebrae debuffs, which is not nice. But yeah, most of this fight is DDR mechanics. Look out for the stampers. Make sure that you're on one guy and your other tank is on the other guy, and have fun with this fight. It's actually a lot of fun. Probably not so much for your poor healers, but for the tank, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I was very surprised. I thought this was going to be a bit of a shit show, quite honestly. But no, this fight is actually very enjoyable, very entertaining, and you feel very accomplished because it looks a lot harder than it actually is. So, anyway, let's move on to the next boss. Alright, next up, boss number 2 for wing number 2 of Black Rock Foundry is Flamebender Ka'graz, who shall henceforth be known as Flamebender Ka'graz because it's a lot easier to say. It's her and Aknor Steelbringer, who you need to tank to begin with here, and base Aknor away from the raid, whoever is tanking him, and the other one, tank Ka'graz, face her away from the raid as well, probably is a good idea. Because she's got a big flamey sword, she'd probably do some sort of ugly cleave. And Aknor will die fairly quickly on Raid Finder difficulty. Usually they just DPS the living crap out of him. When Cinder Wolves are up, one tank should always be taking the wolf that is overheated, the big giant wolf, and you want to make sure that you're keeping the fire link between them as out of the DPS and healers as much as possible. So keep it away from your main raid group. Otherwise, they will die a horrible fiery death. And that's bad. That means you fail as a tank. So responsibility is a bit higher on this fight, but it is actually pretty damn easy. A lot less to be concerned with than Hans and Franz, which, like I said, is not all that difficult. It's pretty fun, actually. So let's take a look at the rest of the mechanics here. So eventually the Flame Wolves do come up. After Ka'graz finishes casting Firestorm, the two tanks will have to perform a tank switch to handle her temporary Flame Fury ability, which and the Rising Flames dot that it applies. Okay, so here we go now. I've got the Overheated Wolf, the other tank is tanking Ka'graz, and yeah, basically the idea here is as much as you can to keep the, oh geez, and now it's switched. It can switch there, and that is annoying. So, yeah, try to keep the other wolf away from, try to keep the wolf's fire link away from the raid as much as you can. Because it's going to set the raid on fire, it's painful, and as you can see, one DPS is already down here, so it's not a win by my traditional standards of nobody died, therefore it's a win. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change that saying here for, instead of if nobody died, it's a win, to if everybody's alive by the end of the fight, then it's a win. Because we've got battle reses here, nobody else has died, so this guy could come back, and he might very well. So anyway, let's flip over here, let's take a look at the everyone mechanics. So these may not, and quite likely will not, apply to the tanks, but some of them will. So, casters and healers, not tanks, should spread out throughout the encounter to basically make sure you don't get hit by the stuff like the Lava Slash, that fiery line on the floor. She swings around, she whacks the floor, and fire goes out in a straight line. It's nasty, it causes damage over time, it's not good. Also, avoid the damage by the summoned enchanted armaments, and avoid the fire lines cast by the two Cinder Wolves that I've gone into great detail with already. So, yeah, if you're DPS or if you're a healer, stay out of the fire. This fight has a lot of fire, so just stay out of it. If you are targeted by Molten Torrent, move into a group of players because it does 465k damage. It will one-shot you if you are not a tank, and even if you're a tank, it'll probably still one-shot you anyway. If you are targeted by Blazing Radiance, move away from the rest of the raid until it expires. Move out of the area of the floor where Magma Monsoon will land. Okay. Magma Monsoon, that's interesting. So, anyway, yeah. Basically, once again, what tanks need to deal with, as you're seeing right now, is the Flame Wolves. Tank the overheated one, it's the tankable one, and try whenever you can to keep the frickin' Fire Beam out of the core of the raid. It's not unbeatable by any means, it's very doable. And, hey, look! That DPSer is up again. Sweet! It's still a win! And yeah, as you can see, once she actually goes down, the Flame Wolves just disappear, which is wonderful! Next up, we've got Kormog, who very well might be the reason that you're watching this in the first place. Alright. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Kormog, the new breaker of raids. Mostly among your DPS, though. Blame the DPS and the healers on this one instead of the tanks, the way you would on Korgath. So, this particular fight, let's go over the basic mechanics here for tanks. So, stand on top of each other first off to avoid, or to rather split the damage of Fists of Stone. What Fists of Stone will do is it will inflict 429k damage onto the targets that are nearby. So it'll split it between two targets within 15 yards of one another. So that's basically the two tanks. So not so bad. It was like 215k damage per tank. Like half of your health, which your healers should be able to deal with. But if it's just one of you, it's going to give you into the ground. So always be a Kormog, except for two cases. When he's casting Slam, get the hell away from him. That will cause 780k damage to all players, reduced based on their distance from the impact point. And also when he's casting Ruin of Grasping Earth that he's doing right now, you get into the hands just like everybody else. It'd be a good idea to DPS your hand down as much as you can safely without getting rid of it completely before Thundering Blows is over. As you can see, I did not necessarily do that there, and we ran into some trouble. If you do not have somebody within melee range, he casts Stone Breath, which is cast all over the frickin' raid. It's 15k natural damage to all enemies every second if there is no valid targets in melee range. He'll continue to breathe until he finds one. So that's kind of nasty. That's why you always need to be in melee range. So, yeah, let's see here. Also, reverberations, you want to dodge that as much as you can. They're actually fairly easy to dodge as tanks because they start in one place and they spread out as they get further out. So for a tank, it's not too difficult to dodge the reverberations. Alright, so let's have a quick review here. So both tanks need to be as close as they can to each other to split the damage of Fists of Stone. You need to switch off whoever is the main tank on Kormog. When Warped Armor gets too high, it's a debuff that reduces movement speed of the target by 5%. Also increases the physical damage they take by 10%. This can stack up to 5 times, so as always, have your tank on focus. You should always have your other tank on focus, and when they start taking too much damage, switch off with them. When the stacks get too high, let's say 3 stacks. Maybe I'm saying this terribly, but I usually pick 3 stacks in LFR, and it's worked out so far, so that is just my best guess, quite frankly. There might be a better way. Maybe you should switch it 2 or 1, or maybe you should switch it 4. Who knows? But I think switching around 3 stacks is usually fairly solid. And always be within range of Kormog to avoid him casting Stone Breath on the entire raid, except in cases of Slam, when he is going to basically gib the everyone who's next to him into the ground 3 or 4 times over their max health. And also when Ruin of Grasping Earth is popping up, because you need to be there to avoid the thundering freaking blows, which won't do a lot of damage, but the falling damage will kill you. Most likely it'll kill you. at least it'll have you down to like 25% health. So I believe that covers everything that you need to know as the tank of this particular fight. So I'm going to next quickly go over some of the reasons that people might be having some difficulty. First off, the thing that I've noticed is the runes of Grasping Earth. The tanks need to make sure that they get their butts out of there as quickly as possible. I know that I myself am guilty of not always doing that, as you saw there earlier. I was not getting my butt out there for a while, and he was casting Stone Breath all over the damn place. So that's one particular thing that the tanks can actually screw up here. Another thing that the tanks can screw up is not staying within melee range the entire time. That hasn't been as big of a problem. Honestly, the runes of Grasping Earth have, I think, have really messed with people a fair bit there. Oh, also those sonic discs do a lot of damage too. But yeah, you need to DPS. Please keep in mind you need to help your healers. You need to help them get out of the those hands. They can't really do it on their own. And if your healers are down, then you're kind of shit out of luck. And I know that I'm not necessarily the best at this fight. This fight is a succeed. It succeeds on the first try, but I did manage to get myself gibbed into the floor the same way I did with Grohl, which, not the greatest. I can probably find a way to prevent that in the future. Chances are he was just hitting hard for an ability that I wasn't ready for, like maybe one of his slams, or I know I did take one of those reverberating discs unnecessarily, so that took out like half my friggin' health, so that could be a problem too. So anyway, Kormog's still a nasty little fight. I remember when he first came out, there was like 4 and 5 stacks of determination that raids would get before he actually went down properly there. Now, it's not nearly as bad. Usually he goes down first attempt on my alliance side, although that's not always the case because someone in my raid was saying, oh boy, it's time to wipe. We're at Kormog, it's time to wipe. Which is not the greatest. I have the feeling on servers that are not quite as awesome as Hans'gar, where the Alliance knows their shit cold, that it might still be quite a painful fight, but hopefully this video will help you guys with that. This pretty much sums it up here. I got Kormog down the first time with this particular random group through LFR, and that pretty much covers it. Just rezzing the guys, and that'll be it. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this particular video. I hope you found it helpful. I hope it calms the fear a little bit on stuff like Kormog there. If you like this particular video, if you want to get some more stuff like this, please subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Twitter at @YBotPower to find out when my stuff is coming up next. For the meantime, my name once again has been YBot. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.